Hello again everyone, and welcome back to Two Wheels in Tokyo, where today's video is going to be another bicycle review. This is of a bicycle which I just finished putting together and was test riding today. And this is a 1964 Moulton Stowaway. Now, I bought this bike kind of on a whim. I was hunting for parts for my APB, and in the Moulton section on eBay, I saw this bicycle come up, not in the condition you see it now, but I thought, wow, that's a really interesting bicycle, a Moulton Stowaway, something which I could clean up and take apart and put in the trunk of my car and have a bicycle handy when I was going out to different parts of Tokyo or Japan. And on a whim, I went and I bought it, and a couple of weeks later it arrived at my home here in Tokyo, and I got to work on it. And after a few months of sanding and stripping and cleaning and adjusting and buying parts and bolting and unbolting and whatever, I ended up with what you see right here. So I'll tell you a little bit of history about the Moulton bicycle. The Moulton bicycle was, of course, invented by Mr. Alex Moulton, who is a well-known engineer in the UK. He was best known for his work in the automotive industry, working on suspension systems, and his effort in working on the rubberized suspension system of the Mini automobile. Upon leaving the automotive industry, he went into the bicycle industry, and he decided to create what he thought would be the universal bicycle. A bicycle which would be suitable for all kinds of different purposes, suitable for both men and women and larger children. And this was what he came up with. A very simple bicycle made out of pretty fundamental components, using a pretty new, I guess, methodology to producing bicycles. He decided to make something more compact than the full-size bicycles which were popular on the market, and especially when it comes to regards to these small wheels. He thought that he could make a bicycle with smaller wheels with high-pressure tires, and to make the bicycle ride smoothly over, I guess, the pavement or pave or pavements or whatever you want to call them, cobblestones in Europe, that he would put in a front and rear suspension system, and that way you have a high-pressure small wheel tire bicycle with a smooth ride. These bicycles were released back in 1962 and were quite successful and produced for a number of years in several different variations, the Stowaway being one of these variations. These bicycles were available generally in 3-speed models, some 4-speed and 5-speed models. This particular one, as a Stowaway, is a 2-speed model. There were quite a few different improvements and variations made over the years. This is, of course, the Mark I style, and you can kind of tell that by the curvy rear fork or chainstay. That was replaced by the Mark II style, which featured a few structural improvements, and then the Mark III style with the new swing arm. And then there was something called the MIDI, which was a smaller version, I guess more suitable for people in tight living spaces. And then finally, this style was kind of walked away from, and Alex Moulton went on to his space frame bicycles, which continue to be produced even to this day. So these are really wonderful bikes. They are wonderfully smooth riding, they're easy handling, they're easy to store, and when you ride one, you kind of understand the philosophy that went into them, and that Alex Moulton was a really wonderful engineer, because they're really wonderful riding bikes. I say that about my APB in my APB videos. It's one of the best riding bikes I've ever experienced. And these little the old ones, the Mark I Stowaways, old Moultons, they are really wonderful riders as well. So let's go ahead and take a closer look. This bicycle, when I got it, it was quite rusty. It was originally blue in color, with most of the blue paint worn off. The decals were worn off. There was rust all over the place. I had planned to try to reuse as many of the original parts as I could, but unfortunately some of them were just too rusted to salvage, so they had to be replaced. Original parts, not so hard to find, but rather than go with too many of the original parts, I decided to make a few improvements to make the bicycle a little bit lighter and a little bit, I guess, more rideable here in Japan. Some of the things which I had to replace, the first thing I had to replace was the front wheel. The original front wheel had all the chrome worn off of the braking surface. The bearings were very gritty. It was out of true. I took off the tire to try to adjust the spokes and found that the spoke nipples were really corroded and there were rust holes through the inside of the rim. I tried removing the spokes, but the nipples and spokes broke, so I just tossed it in the bin and ordered this wheel with the dynamo hub from the UK. And it's quite a nice wheel, no rust on the inside or outside. Dynamo hub works. One of these days I'll find the original light for it and mount it on the bike, but that was the first thing I replaced. The second thing I replaced was the front brake. The original brake is a steel side pull caliper unit, which is a little bit heavy and clunky and doesn't work especially well. The brake arms were very flexy. Whenever I would use the brakes, the front wheel would pull the brake noticeably forward by at least half an inch or so. And I really didn't like it. It looked ugly, it worked bad, so I bought this Diacomp dual pivot brake off of Amazon. I think it was about $23, $24. A very inexpensive upgrade, but far and away better than the original brake which came on this bike. The brake lever, the original lever, was a very flimsy steel lever which was not as rusted as most of the other components, but very ugly. I replaced it with this very beautiful Paul Components lever. I got this for a fairly good price because it was a single one. When you buy them in sets, they're very expensive here in Japan, probably expensive in other places as well, but I really love how it works. The brakes feel wonderful, very light to actuate, and it stops the bike quickly. The original bar and stem on the bike were rusted beyond redemption. No matter how I cleaned off, they just came out brown with bits of shiny metal and flakes of chrome and looked awful. And I didn't want to put the rusty old stuff on a fairly, nicely repainted bicycle. So I bought these Nito parts, Technomic stem here and a matching bar. And I really like the satin aluminum look over the steel look, which was the original parts had, what was left of it anyway. I haven't gotten a good set of grips for the bike yet. These are I salvaged these off of my mountain bike and put them on just because they fit and I needed something to put on the bike while I was using it. And for replacement parts, so far that's as far as I've gotten, other than the chain. This bike still had the original chain, and I couldn't believe how much it had been stretched and worn and all of that. And I replaced the chain, and this new chain runs so much better and so much quieter. Makes the bike a much easier bike to ride. One interesting thing about the Stowaway is it doesn't have any cables or wires which run to the back half of the bike, because that simplifies taking the bike apart into two pieces. If there are no wires or cables running to the back, you don't have to mess with it. So rather than having a brake caliper in the back, this bike is fitted with a coaster brake. So you just brake by stepping backwards on the pedals. And to avoid having a shifter cable go to the back, this has what is called a duomatic hub, which is a 2-speed hub, and you shift gears by simply pedaling backwards slightly. Not enough to actuate the brake, but just pedal backward, just a small part of a turn, and that shifts up to the next gear. And you do the same thing to shift back down. It's a very simple and foolproof system, and I really like how it works. Now, one of the strong points to this bike is the rack system. It has this nice rack on the back which you can detach to make the bicycle look a little bit cleaner or lighter. These bikes were originally fitted with a nice accessory trunk bag which you could put groceries or stuff in. Unfortunately, that wasn't on this bike when I got it, but I finally tracked down one and ordered it, and hopefully I'll have it sometime next week and I'll go ahead and put it on. The original front rack was all bent up and nasty looking, and rather than try to straighten it out and salvage it, I just tossed it in the bin, and I'll order a new front rack for it. And I'll get a basket for the front so my dog can ride in it. My dog loves to ride on the front of the bike when I'm out riding. This plastic chain guard here was completely black and brown when I got the bike. I scrubbed it off with dishwashing detergent and a sponge, and it came out pretty nice. It's not perfect, but it looks pretty good, and from a distance it looks better than it does up close. I found this other chain guard on eBay in decent condition, so I ordered it and they sent it out, and I put that on there last week, and I think it looks pretty good. The pedals I replaced, the original pedals of course were toast. I found these 60s vintage, brand new in the box MKS pedals here in Japan. One good thing about living in Japan is that bicycle parts are very plentiful and easy to find here, especially vintage Japanese ones, and even a lot of the British parts you can sometimes find here. I chose the white pedals because I thought it would look good with the white chain guard, and I still had the white grips on here for a while. Maybe I'll put white grips on again. To give you an idea what the rust looked like when I got it, it all looked like this here, this brown seat post. I'd ordered a seat post for this and I received it, but they sent me the wrong size, so I returned it and they're sending me the correct size seat post, and that's going to go with a newer Brooks saddle, which I've got sitting in my my parts box. This is an original style seat, though it's not an original seat. This is a 60s design sprung seat with 2 big springs on the back and a bunch of springs underneath the seat padding on the inside. The seat is remarkably comfortable. I was really surprised when I sat on it. It's very soft and cushy and it absorbs the bumps. But what I don't like is it's very noisy and creaky. And when I'm pedaling, it creaks and makes odd noises. And if I go over bumps, it creaks and makes more odd noises. And while it's very comfortable for like rides around town or to the grocery store, stuff like that, for anything longer than that, it's, you know, my experience with saddles is that the more comfortable they are in the short run, the more uncomfortable they are in the long run. So but saddles which are a little bit uncomfortable for short rides tend to be more comfortable on longer rides and vice versa. So I'm very happy with how the bicycle turned out. This wasn't a restoration on this bike, it was just a quick cleanup, so I would have something presentable to ride around in the boardwalk and in our favorite holiday place. And once I get the seat post and saddle, I hope this thing will look even better than it does now. It's a very wonderful bicycle to ride. The 2-speed gearing, it doesn't sound like a whole lot, but where I live around here, there aren't a lot of hills or mountains or anything like here. It's fairly flat, so it's perfectly fine. The low gear isn't very low, but it's enough to get up over the minor hills. The high gear is fairly high, so it's but not that I want to ride a bicycle like this, 50 kilometers per hour. I really love the suspension on the bike. It works perfectly. It soaks up the bumps on the front and the rear, and when you add the sprung seat, it makes it a very comfortable and cushy bicycle to ride. And I can see why these bicycles were so popular back in the day when they were on the market. And I can't really say too much good about these bikes. They're a really good value. I still see them, there's lots and lots of these for sale on eBay in the UK, and some of them are priced next to nothing. They're really wonderful things to work on if you're looking for a winter project, a bicycle related project. The parts aren't so hard to find for them. They're not that difficult to take apart and put back together, with the exception of the frame pivot here. I had to replace that, and that was it was an ordeal to say the least, but the rest of the bike was quite simple. I replaced the headset bearings, I replaced the axle bearings on the wheels, I replaced the bearings for the crank set, so everything is nice and smooth and works wonderfully, and it's just a wonderful riding bike. And you might think that after doing so much work on this bicycle that my urge to work on bicycles has been satisfied, but it hasn't. On a recent trip, my wife and I were walking around, and a bicycle stopped on the street next to us at the red light, and she really liked the bicycle. She said, "Oh, what kind of bicycle is that?" And it was a Brompton. And so since she seemed to show some interest in the Brompton, and my wife does do some cycling, I decided to pick up an old Brompton and restore that. So a few days ago I found a Brompton in really rough shape that I decided might be worthy of bringing back to life and making a productive member of the cycling society again. So I bought it, and I'm waiting for it to be delivered, and hopefully it'll be here by the weekend, and it'll give me something else to work on. That one is in incredibly rough shape, the chains all seized up on it, and but it's complete, and maybe I'll do some videos of myself, some before, during, and after, to show the progress, and hopefully it'll come out I plan to do more of a real restoration on that one rather than just a cleanup, because my wife is a little bit more picky about things than I am, but hopefully it'll come out really nice and she'll enjoy riding it. But anyway, it's getting really cold out here and I don't like the sound of fire trucks and all that stuff in the background, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the video off, and hopefully I'll get another video up next week or the week after. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.